a motion for correction and approval of the said records. Yes, Honorable Member for Jimara.
Thank you very much, Ma. I rise to move that the record of vote and proceeding of the National Assembly sitting on Monday, 2nd November 2019 be corrected and considered or approved.
Thank you. Seconder, yes, Kiang West.
I rise to second the motion, Ma.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that the record of votes and proceedings of the National Assembly sitting of Monday, the 2nd of December 2019 be approved. Any issues or observations from honorable members? We start with page 1. Thank you. Page 1. Yes, Gimara.
Honorable Alaji Mbu was present yesterday, including Alaji.
I talk to them directly, in fact. I don't even normally don't mention it. I always go to them and tell them. But anytime I see it in my list, yes.
There is no E.
Yes, there is no E.
No E, very well. Please, table office, can you take note of that? No E.
No, there is no E.
Thank you.
So, yeah, but yes, about me.
Okay. Thank you. On page, any more on page 3? Any more correction?
Jimara. Is it Jimara? Okay.
He was referring to page 4.
I thought that this was Jara. This is Jimara.
It's Jimara. Yes, Lower Fuladu West.
Number 3, laying of papers and reports. Third paragraph, at the end of the sentence, Honorable Alaji S. Dabo, the E should be omitted. It's O, not E.
Yes, to hand over, it says each A committee. So we just say hand over a copy of the bills in sequence to the clerk. That is what it's telling. And then the last paragraph, accordingly, the spelling of attorney. Yes, and then the second line where it says bill in sequence and deemed to have been read the first time. Yeah, I think that will tally, yeah.
Six. Yes, Jimara, Honorable.
Madam, the last paragraph, I don't know whether the Honorable Member for Woodley was talking about that. The way the Attorney General is spelled is not correct. Okay.
It's just a point of observation. I think according to the standing order, members should rise when addressing the speaker. And I'm seeing members, they are sitting down while talking.
Committee under the standing orders. That's Honorable Mariam Jack Denton, Chairperson, Honorable Keba Jallo, GDC, Honorable Fatou Njai, PPP, Honorable Swaibu Toure, PDOIS, Honorable Amadou Kamara, NRP, Honorable Keba K. Baro, UDP, Honorable Sunkari Baji, APRC, Honorable Muhammad Magasi, Independent. Honorable members, as we are aware, the first reading of the bill was done yesterday, the 2nd of December 2019, and today is the appointed day for the second reading in accordance with Standing Order 62, Subclause 2. Therefore, pursuant to Clause 67 of the Standing Orders, I will now invite the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice to move a motion for the second reading of the bill. If the motion is carried, the clerk will read aloud the short title of the bill and declare it to have been read for the second time. Thereafter, the Assembly may debate the general merits and principles of the bill as per Standing Orders Clause 67(1). And after the debate, the bill shall stand referred to the Assembly Business Committee for committal to the various to the relevant committee. And this is in accordance with Standing Order 60. The second, if you look at the second reading, Honorable, on clause 67, it says, on a motion being moved that a bill be read a second time, the general merits and principles of the bill may be debated, just as you have it there. So I think we're on the same platform. Thank you. Yes, correct? Thank you. Yep, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a point of order. In pursuant to Section 53C and H, where motions now which may be made without notice. Oh, sorry. Yes, Section 53C and H gives us provisions where motions can be tabled without notice. I just want to refer the House to Section 64 of the standing orders, of the new standing orders. Yes. Objects and reasons. No, it says 64, especially B, C, and E. It says that every bill shall be accompanied by a memorandum signed by the person in charge of the bill containing a statement of the objects and reasons of the bill, including B, the main options considered as we are discussing now, the consultative process undertaken, and the rationale for the approach taken in the bill. C, a statement of delegation of legislative powers and limitation of fundamental rights and freedoms, if any. And E, a statement of the financial implication. And if the expenditure of public money will be involved, should the bill be enacted, an estimate, where possible, of such expenditure. Like the honourable member said, it's subjective. We might read it different ways. But as far as I'm concerned, this particular information might influence our decision making in consideration of these bills. So therefore, I thought they were important information that we have. But should the House resolve that it's not needed, I think we can go to vote and move on.
Do we proceed? Thank you. In that case, let me invite the Honorable Attorney General. Yes, to move a motion for the second reading of the bill. It was read the first time yesterday.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members of this Assembly, it is my pleasure to once again appear before you if the person has not occupied the said post for 5 years. Whereas, on the other hand, a private legal practitioner is eligible for elevation to the High Court after 5 years of practice as such. Where two persons are enrolled in the same year, the one opting for private practice becomes eligible for appointment to the High Court bench earlier than the one who opts for service as a judicial officer on the lower bench. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, this is an unwarranted distinction and an anomalous situation which requires correction through the amendment of the Constitution. This move will remove the undue restrictions on the elevation of suitable judicial officers from the lower to the superior bench. The amendment is necessary, particularly in view of the high vacancy rate in the High Court, the existence of a large pool of magistrates from which to draw to fill vacancies, and the need to deploy efforts to implement the policy of indigenization of the judiciary. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, with those reasons and objects, I beg to move that this House
appeal, please mark my words, I'm appealing to honorable members, considering the fact that we have 6 bills today for debate on the merits and another 4 for first reading, and in view of the fact that these bills will go to committee stage for further consideration and subsequent debate by the plenary here, I'm pleading for the interventions to be precise, to the point, on the general merits and principles of the bill. I think we will have an ample opportunity to debate the bills exhaustively. It's an appeal for the honorable members. So thank you. Let me take the... yes, honorable member for Upper Salum.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to refer to Standing Order 68, committal of a bill to a committee. Section 1, it says, when a bill has been read a second time, it shall stand referred to the Assembly Business Committee for the committal to the committee. And so
Excuse me. I know, Honorable. I think there's the rationale behind this, as well as is understanding orders. I'm sure the thinking behind it by the honorable members of the Standing Order Committee is so that when we debate the merits here and the principles, honorable members will have an opportunity to know the thinking so that when they go to the various committees, they will bear in mind the issues that have been raised at the plenary with regards to the various bills in this case, but for the bill. No? Yes, honorable member for.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, going by Standing Order Clause 67, it says on a motion being moved that the bill be read a second time, general merit and principle of the bill may be debated. It is now, left to the whole House to decide whether we want it to be debated or go to the committee.
Their opinions in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I think we should do the debate. I propose that we do the debate. Yeah, thank you.
In fact, if you recollect, I had pleaded for the interventions to be brief, but yes, honorable member for Serekunda.
Honorable Speaker, I think we should look at the provisions in their interconnections, not in their detachment. The standing orders aim for us to discuss the merit and commit it to a select committee. If they do their work and bring it, we are no longer going back to the merit. There is no debate. It is going to the details of the committee of the whole House. That is the objective. We discuss the merit, and they will know the mind of Parliament, and they will go and look at the substantive issues and come up with their report. The report is just influential, it's persuasive influence. When we go to the committee of the whole House to look at the bill item by item, this is where the recommendations can come. We may take Section 4, it tells us that a person, as it is now under the 1997 Constitution, a person shall be qualified to be appointed as a judge of the High Court if he or she holds or has held office as a principal magistrate or master in the Gambia, or an office which, in the opinion of the Judicial Service Commission, enjoys a comparable jurisdiction in a common law country. In each case, for not less than 5 years. And if he or she has practiced clarify that because that is not the language that the Constitution is actually saying, because when it is recommended that the person must be qualified based on the constitutional provision of being a legal practitioner in a common law jurisdiction for not less than 5 years, and common law is actually defined under Section 139 of Section 5. It says that a country within the Commonwealth, a country outside the Commonwealth, prescribed by an act of the National Assembly for the purpose of this section, the courts of which exercise a common law jurisdiction. So it means that we're not only talking about offering the post of High Court judges to Gambians exclusively, but
I'm sorry, Honorable, can you refer me back? Can I get the relevant section of the Constitution
yes, the
that
section,
you just quoted?
Yes, the section is Section 139, subsection 5.
Thank you. You can go ahead. Proceed.
Yes, which defines a common law country.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
So in that regard, Honorable Speaker, it means that all those people would
And if we take it upon us to try and motivate the Gambians to go for it, then I think it is a cause that is applaudable. Madam Speaker, if we can accept private practitioners to be elevated to the High Court and then prevent the magistrates from being elevated, what is going to motivate them, Madam Speaker? We all know that the civil service in this country are very badly paid. So I think we need to come up with something that would at least motivate them. We've seen the boldness of the Honorable Minister on the media stating that he has lost most of his staff. And I think only a bold person would come up and say that they are suffering publicly. And I think we should look into this and try and support this amendment to ensure that we strengthen
can the minister convince us that in 5 years, that person can be a competent High Court judge? That's my worry. The practice that has been going on for private practitioners, of course, I would have, well, I can understand if the requirement for private practitioners is increased beyond, let's say, 10 years in private practice. And anybody who serves in the bench, any magistrate, even at 3 years, you can be elevated to that position. I think practice is key here. Someone who has been sitting at the bench for a period of 5 years may be too long. It can even be 3 years sitting in the bench, or on the bench at any level of the magisterial level can be qualified to the position of a High Court judge. But for someone to be practicing at any level for 5 years, well, I don't know. You have to convince us that that person can really be competent. But the essence is we want the backlog at the courts to really be think of the past. I think on that basis, I would be supporting the bill if it is going to ensure that there is competence, and also the backlog of cases would be easily dispensed with. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Central Badibu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The bill, the objective and the reason of the bill is self-explanatory, and it has a lot of merits that will give us the opportunity to give our blessings. Madam Speaker, first of all, restriction of our Gambians to be in such position, in itself is a violation of rights. So the bill is going to address that violation.
5 years, this law came into being to suppress our Gambians, allow foreigners. This is why most of our good Gambians, lawyers, quit the government and went into a private practice because they've not been motivated. This has been since the First Republic. Second Republic become more worse. Now it is time for this transition. This transitional government to put a stop to anything that will deter the progress of the Gambian people. Madam Speaker, this is a bill that the Gambians are expecting. I don't think we should debate long to take more time on this. Our young people, you go to law school today. How many of our young people, our children, are struggling to become a lawyer, to represent their fellow citizens, rather packing on some foreigners in the corner? You know how economically, how worse, what happened or looted our economy here. We have seen for 22 years here. We cannot talk without quoting. Whether one like it, you don't like it. But the experience
for far too long, our judiciary sector has been manned by foreigners. You have foreigners at the highest echelon in our judiciary. It is not bad, but Madam Speaker, I think when we have Gambians at the helm of the judiciary, it will pay great dividends. It will create employment for those that have been elevated, and others will come and take their position as well. So I have no qualms with the bill, Madam Speaker. It's about the government judiciary, and we have our boarding lawyers who also need to be elevated. So the long and short of the bill is seeking for eligibility criteria for our boarding lawyers that have been serving the country for quite a long time. And I, for one, I see no reason why we should not give this important bill the yes that it's seeking for. Madam Speaker, based on that, I will give my full support to this bill because it is about Gambianization of the judiciary. It is going to create employment for our Gambian brothers and sisters. And for far too long,
when somebody holds that can become a judge in the Gambia. Honorable Speaker, indigenization process, I believe, is a policy of the state of the Gambia. And therefore, my only concern there is quality. Whatever will not dilute the quality of our judicial system is what I would go for. Yes, it will provide, make people to become judges quickly, but then whether that will not dilute the quality. Also, Honorable Speaker, my last point is where the objects and reasons. A private legal practitioner, on the other hand, is eligible for elevation to the High Court after 5 years of practice as such. Where two persons are enrolled in the same year, the one opting for private practice becomes eligible for appointment to the High Court bench earlier than the one who opts for service as a judicial officer on the lower bench. What will be the rationale of the drafters of the Constitution to make it this way? It's not that they don't know, but there must be a reason. What is the rationale behind this? Is it that the person
million times. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Janjambure.
Mine is actually not an intervention, but I just want to ask a question. I said it here. Why do we continue to look at the old constitution, look at the things that we want to change? There are important ones. For example, 58, that is talking about the appointment of chiefs, and 59, the alcalis. These are important things that is affecting our electorate, and that's not, we are not even considering that. So, Mr. Minister, please, I think this will be the last one for the changes on this old constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. I think your point is well noted, but we are debating the merits and principles of this amendment. But I'm sure the Honorable Attorney General will take note. Honorable Member for Birkama North.
We want our judicial service to be effective. Equally, we want to retain the qualified personnel, and we cannot do so if the opportunities there and in the private practice are different. They will tend to take what is in their view to be at their advantage. And here, this bill has come to address that. I also added my voice that it is indeed timely and has come to promote Gambianizing our judiciary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll call on the Honorable Nominated Member Gassama. Honorable Apafuladu, we'll come to your motion. I will.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I think it will be very vital for us to understand what type of bill is tabled before us here. This is about the judicial system. That's the time the person can deliver what is really expected from him or her as a judge. I think what I just I have one question here for the minister to make a clarification on that. Whether this provision that we are talking about, you want to make amendment, is it an entering clause or non-entering clause? For him to make a clarification on that. For me to support the bill, that is one of my this thing. I just want to throw my support behind the bill, because I know that this bill is very important for the simple reasons, because it's a judicial system. Because without justice, nothing can be worked in terms of development of the country. It's the first priority in terms of development. I think it's very important
I think there was no motion anyway. But thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
If the only thing is for us to be brief. We can be brief, but we need to follow the procedures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also stand to equally support the amendment of this bill for the reasons afforded by the Honorable Minister of Justice. Now, two things, Honorable Speaker, comes to mind when you look at this amendment, which is about indigenization of the judiciary and also to allow competent people also to man some of these positions at the judiciary, which I think is a step in the right direction. Once we have competent Gambians in this country, I think it's always important to give them the job for them to perform. Honorable Speaker, I am not really very comfortable when I have fellow parliamentarians calling other Africans foreigners. I don't feel really very comfortable because it actually defeats the purpose of the Pan-African mentality. You cannot have a Nigerian in Gambia here or a Ghanaian in Gambia here and you call me a foreigner. You know, we should not do that. Now, if you look at Kwame Nkrumah, he said all people of African descent, whether they live in the north or in the south or in the Caribbean, they are all
Salum. He has spoken before me. The reason why I want to take the floor is to call the attention of my fellow members here who were talking about taking foreigners and employing them under this sector. Now, if I refer you to page 95 of 173 on the appointment of Chief Justice and other judges, if you go to subsection 3 of that place, says, if a superior court comprises less than number of Gambian judges to constitute the full complement of the court, a judge who is not a citizen of the Gambia, but is a judge in an equivalent court in another Commonwealth country and meets the requirements for appointment under this constitution, may be appointed to the court for such durations as may be considered necessary. So, I mean, we are all Africans. One Africa, one voice. Let's remember that some of our Gambians here are somewhere in the world appointed. So let us not feel jealous to see other Africans to be here appointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimara,
Thank you very much.
It's about time we draw the line because otherwise...
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
a piecemeal. Thank you very much.
Very much, Honorable. The point is noted, but we are debating the merits and principles of this amendment. I think we have already taken about 17 interventions, and I think that's enough to give us an overview of the perception of honorable ministers, as a result of which I would now, no, I have taken 17 interventions. Sorry, who is that? Ah, Woolly West, I did not see it. Maybe it was flying. Well, you see, it should have been stationary because okay, you can go. Let's take the last intervention then. Look.
Honorable Speaker.
I knew that it would be the last.
You know, amendment, particularly with writing stuff, be it legal or otherwise, can be two things. You amend the form or you amend indigenization, because for me there is nothing like that as far as I'm concerned in Africa. I talk about Africanization, but not indigenization. I still remember the words of the Honorable Member for Jarrah East, who spoke very eloquently as a Pan-Africanist yesterday, still are fresh in my head. This Gambia should be very grateful to those Africans we call foreigners. The judicial service system here would have collapsed without Ghana, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, and some others. So, yes, we should have
them in terms of delivery of efficient quality justice is the fact that we do not have the necessary quota to fill in the vacancies. In order for us to fill the positions, the vacant positions in the superior courts, we have one of two choices. We either reach out to private legal practitioners to be appointed, or we reach out to our brothers and sisters on the continent to come and help. Now, the government's policy objective of indigenization, as I am sure the Honorable Member for Serekunda is aware, was prompted by the state of affairs during the political impasse, when all of a sudden we all realized in this country that the fate of our nation is in the hands of 5 Supreme Court judges, none of whom were Gambians. And so the government made it a policy objective to actively seek the inclusion of Gambians on our judiciary. That is why today we have a Supreme Court that is composed of there are inbuilt safeguards that I believe will ensure that quality takes precedence over quantity. And in terms of your comment about how this amendment will help with the backlog of cases, that is one of the primary ripple effects of this amendment. When we have more judges at the superior courts, that means the judiciary has a better coping ability to deal with the backlog of cases, both criminal and civil, but especially criminal. I perhaps would just make reference to the Honorable Member for Janjambure and for Latrikunda Sabiji about the selective amendments. Well, I had said here before that we will not adopt a piecemeal approach to the amendments of the 1997 Constitution, but where we deem that it is absolutely necessary and vital to promote the effective functioning of the state, then we will come before you to seek an amendment. And that is why I am here today, notwithstanding the fact that a draft constitution has now been circulated. I am not sure whether that draft constitution will be promulgated before the first 6 months of next year, but 6 months even is a particularly long time for someone awaiting trial in prison. And this amendment will hopefully help in the because that was the intention at that time. Of course, things might have been overtaken by events in terms of the budget. I do not know what the current implications will be, but this was based on the fact that there were existing vacant positions that were yet to be filled at the time. And actually, I was a little bit disappointed when I heard the Honorable Member for Upper Sarum say that you have slashed the judiciary's budget. We want speedy dispensation of justice. We want cases to move quickly, yet we are not providing the full support that the judiciary requests. And so I'm afraid it will be a collective responsibility at that point when we continue to hit brick walls in terms of the speedy dispensation of justice. I think I have spoken about the helpful foreign judges in this country. I do not need to repeat myself on that. Perhaps just to add that the Honorable Member for Woolly East had also a question about the Office of Comparable Jurisdiction in a common law country. As the Honorable Member for Woolly West has said, that will be out of the window as well. We no longer need that, but I would have been hard-pressed to provide you with a response because as you know, the law is quite fluid, and I hesitate to provide on-the-spot responses without, I like to be guarded in my responses, as usual. But anyway, nevertheless, that is a moot point now, that is out. And to pick up from that in terms of how does this to the nominated member Gassama, I can assure him that this provision is not entrenched in the Constitution. I believe that is, those are the concerns raised, Madam Speaker. Unless there are any others, I thank you for this opportunity.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the issues have been addressed, and it appears, as I said earlier on, that honorable members are in support, at least the majority are in support of it. So I think we can move on to the next stage, which is to indicate to honorable members that in accordance with clause 868, subclause 1 of the standing orders, the bill entitled an act to amend the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia under section 226, subsection 2, and for connected matters, is hereby referred to the Assembly Business Committee for committal to the relevant committee. Clerk, I think we can now continue with the next bill.
Gambia Anti-Corruption Bill 2019 by the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Thank you. May I now invite the Honorable Attorney General
to move that this assembly adopt this bill. Thank you.
Much. Any seconder of the motion? Yes, honorable member for Nyanija. Can you raise your tag? Yes, Nyanija. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Speaker. I think it's time I got my tag back from the technicians. Since last week, it's been on the maintenance, till now I don't have it. I think I need it, if not. Okay, thank you. I raise the second motion.
Members, it has been moved and seconded that the bill entitled Gambia Anti-Corruption Bill 2019 be read a second time. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Clerk, can we read the short title of the bill? Thank you.
Gambia Anti-Corruption Bill 2019.
Thank you. In accordance with Clause 67, Subclause 1 of the Standing Orders, I will now open the floor for debate on the general merits and principles of the bill. Honorable members who wish to take part in the debate may
If you look at Rwanda from 1994 today, that's just 25 years. But there is a rapid change and development across all sectors in that country because there is less corruption now in Rwanda. We have to support this bill because it will help a lot. In Gambia here, leaders of departments, ministries, or parastatals, things that like, for example, if I am the director of a parastatal, I think that it belongs to Mohamed Ndao, and I will call it Ndao Kunda. I can embezzle funds any way I can, and nothing will go out of it. If we can recall in this country how many projects have been here, how many projects, and we are still where we are. This is just because of corruption. And if you want to continue this way, we will never move forward. Next generation, our children, our grandchildren will continue to suffer. So coming up with this bill, it will really help the country, and I think it will move the country forward. So I am in support of this bill, and I think all my colleagues will be in support of it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
to do. And then this bill needs scrutinization, and then we go through it thoroughly, word by word, not page by page, but word by word, to know what is in it. And then we make sure that we address it properly, we support it, and then we do justice. To me, justice delay is justice deny, and this is what we really need. Gone are those days when we say that this has been here, but implementation is our problem. That is why we are here where we are. Since time immemorial, Gambia is where we are. You go to the provinces, the same thing. Since before our great-great-grandfathers were born, Gambia is the same. So it is high time for us to move from where we are, to be candid, and let us be sincere to what we are doing and do justice to this country. Otherwise, we will be judged. Thank you.
Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. Madam Speaker, I stand by to welcome Gambia Anti-Corruption Bill 2019.
That is overdue. Since 2017, we had been expecting this. But I am seeing here on page 15 where it is said the executive secretary would be appointed by the president. I'm recommending, Mr. Minister, that the President does the nomination and the confirmation be done by this National Assembly. So that tomorrow, nobody will start saying the President did this, the President is corrupt or so. So I am recommending that he does the nomination, his office does the nomination, and the National Assembly does the approval. And secondly, the secretary, executive secretary and his staff needs to declare their assets first before you can examine
the legislative aspect and all the aspects that we were looking for. Madam Speaker, for the country to become corruption-free, I think looking at the various reports from audit report and during our oversight function, we learned that some of the institutions are procured, but what is delivered is not the actual thing. So I think when we pass this bill, it will help a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Jara East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I rise to drum up support for this important bill, known as the Anti-Corruption Bill. Madam Speaker, corruption has been a major problem for Africa. And this is why I always say that corruption in Africa, it has never been a kidney stone in Africa, but always a cancer. Madam Speaker, this bill has come to address I think for far too long, Madam Speaker, corruption is known to be eating the fabric of our nation. And I think we must put a stop to it. And I believe, Madam Speaker, this bill has just come to address that, because we have been yearning for the establishment of this important anti-corruption. And I hope all of us will work assiduously to make sure that this anti-corruption bill navigates without any let or hindrance. Thank you very much.
Member for Opanyomi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I also join my colleagues to give my 100% support to this particular bill. Madam Speaker, anti-corruption bill is designed to eradicate or prevent dishonest or fraudulent conduct, especially in political context. The cause of corruption, especially in Gambia or in Africa, is political and economic environment, professional ethics, moralities, and causes of habits, customs, and traditions. Madam Speaker, the effect of corruption in our society, it threatens
cannot be done if our society is deemed to be corrupt. What we are trying, or what the bill seeks to do, is to showcase corrupt-free Gambia. Therefore, it needs concerted effort to make sure that we have a corrupt-free society. Let me warn that it is important for us to know that it is the fundamental right of every Gambian to live in a society that is corrupt-free. We must not stop at making a law that will prevent this country from corruption, but to make sure that when the laws are made, they are applied to the latter. Implementation of such laws are
Speaker, for giving me the floor. I thank the Minister for the objectives given in his speech. Madam Speaker, this is a non-controversial bill, and I strongly I give my support to the bill. Only thing I want to assure the Minister, for example, in the former act, in this present act, is talking of two elements, that is investigation, prosecution, prevention, and asset recovery as a way of fighting against corruption. I think this, I'm asking the Minister whether in the former act, whether these elements were absent in the former act, and how is he going to apply to be different from the former act. Other than that, I have fully support the bill, and I support it. Thank you very much.
Sabasanja.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I am very happy today when I see this bill being tabled in Parliament. Actually, we are now coming to realize democracy. Democracy cannot exist where people are corrupt, where corruption is the order of the day. And many people have said it here, it is easier to say than done. Madam Speaker, we are really now facing the real transformation of the Gambia. We all know corruption is the order of the day in this country. It will be difficult if you ask me to give proof
but these are hidden secrets. Madam Speaker, if you look at corruption in its form, it has to do with the attitude and conduct of the individuals. And if you look at our entire country, each sector or any domain you go, even the farmers, you see some element of corruption. Therefore, it is really timely and very important to have this anti-corruption bill. But as I said, Madam Speaker, it's easier to say than done. Having the law in place, for me, is not sufficient. What we should emphasize more about is the implementation and the execution of this particular law. Somebody talked about the investigation. For me, I want it to be very, very, very open. I think when we come to the real debate of the bill, we will go give those submissions. But generally, if you look at Gambia, we have, a very professional way of doing corruption. But I have to say this: we have to start it from ourselves, because it has been defined in the book, in the law. Bribery and all those things are talked about. But do we consider them as bribery? Do we consider them as corrupt acts? That is the fundamental. That's why it has to connect with our attitudes. So first of all, we have to build our attitude to a level that everybody will appreciate it. Madam Speaker, I think talking about this bill at this moment, we cannot exhaust ourselves. But I want to believe that this is a very important bill. And me personally, I have a lot to say about this bill. I don't intend to talk more, and it's not in my way to be speaking even in reports and these kind of bills. But actually, Madam Speaker, this anti-corruption bill really entices me. And I'm appealing and urging every one of us to start diffusing corruption in ourselves first. How do you do that? You first of all have to do with your attitude. Because the way you appear to people, the way you approach people, convince them or, put them to approach it in a corrupt way. Let us remember that the institution we are managing or we are working is not our own institution. It's not our personal institution, rather. It is for the Gambia, and therefore for the Gambia. So nobody has any power to get anything more than what you are paid in a particular workplace or in a particular position, and it is legal. So, and this is happening, we all know it. It's a very open secret. Just go to the highway, you see what is happening. So, Madam Speaker, this is a very important bill, and I just stand to inform this august body that I am really supporting this bill, and let us critically look at it. All those things that are missing, let us bring them in this bill. Because Africa is really deterred by corruption. And Gambia is ranked as is rated as a very wrong, corrupt country. Look at our economy. If people are corrupt to this level, when shall we realize development? Madam Speaker, I don't intend to talk much, but I'm just putting the case that let us start diffusing corruption from ourselves first. Because I see that for a country to be corruption-free, we have to deal with our attitudes. That is very fundamental. Thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Thank you. For any brevet.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do not intend to belabor more on the relevance of this bill, but perhaps to remind this House that we are faced with a crucial bill that intends to fight a chronic disease. And of course, this requires courage by all of us. This takes us straight to the objects and reasons with regards to the strategies that have been mentioned here by the Honourable Minister that intends to fight corruption, and I name them. This includes investigation, prosecution, prevention, and asset recovery. I need a little bit of clarification by the Honourable Minister. Prevention what is meant here. Is it at the level of the judicial system or at the level of institutions? Probably I would suggest that it includes improved systems, transparency, accountability, procedures, and processes. Hence, implementation in this country is a major problem. We have a lot of laws, a lot of legislations, but the devil lies in the implementations. So I was trying to say that the systems must be sophisticated. That will help us in the fight against corruption. But besides that, I'm in support of the bill. All I need actually is a little bit of clarification in terms of the prevention of media as a strategy, whether at the judicial level or at the institutional level. Thank you.
North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The part of the object of the bill states that the Act will provide a legal framework to guide the fight against corruption and economic crimes in the Gambia. This actually entails that corruption do exist in the Gambia and is time-bound that we fight against corruption. This reminded me in 1993, when I was going to school, the Reverend Bishop of the Catholic Church, Reverend Bishop Michael Kerr, in his Kunguja Mariama speech that was focused on corruption in the Gambia. He said to himself that if he called himself a Christian, things that were happening in the Gambia then, and he failed to speak about them, then he was not a true Christian. That's why he could not keep mute on those issues and had to speak against corruption when he was delivering his sermon. The First Republic, in his view, he considered them to be corrupt, or the society was corrupt. The advent of the 1994 coup, the military junta also described the First Republic to be corrupt. And I want to believe, interestingly, we are also seeing that there is corruption in the Gambia based on what necessitated the minister to say we need to fight against corruption. That means corruption is cankerworm to our society. Yes, we change the government, but the true change can come when there's a change in the system, and the system cannot change if we don't change our attitude that make the society to be corrupt. This is what this bill is intended to address. The bill is repealing the 2012 Gambia Anti-Corruption Commission. In place, we have the Gambia Anti-Corruption Bill. The minister can shed light on the differences between the two. Madam Speaker, corruption is quite simple by a word to say, but it's very broader. According to Bishop Michael Kerr, I don't know whether that is still in existence, the drivers who receive dashes or the police officers who receive doses from the drivers, for them to have a way to go, he said they are corrupt. He said the custom officers who receive bribes in exchange of services, they are corrupt. Above all, the public officers who are entrusted to public offices that call for fair distribution of burden and benefits among its people. If they fail to do so, they are corrupt. Therefore, corruption is everywhere. The BBC journalist had to ask Bishop about this, or Sir Dauda about this, whom Bishop was referring to. Sir Dauda said the Bishop is referring to the whole population, not only one sector of the population. So corruption is an issue affecting each and every one of us. He said the small projects that are meant for the poor are squandered at the detriment of the poor people. And usually, it is only the small fry fish that are arrested and taken to jail, but the big fish always escape. I hope this bill will not make the small fry fish to be behind bars and the big fish to be escaped. These were the words of the Right Reverend Bishop Michael Cleary. He called for a stop to what he called rampant corruption, lack of transparency, and accountability. 1993, 1994, there was military coup. We could all recall the slogan, the words that the military juntas were using. Corruption, rampant corruption, nepotism, lack of transparency, tribalism. These were the words used by the juntas. I had this to say, the concern of the bishop became the concern of the military. That also contributed to the military takeover. It is very sad to note that 22 years also, we expect that those vices will not be the orders of the day. But unfortunately, we branded the 22 years period that the military junta were saying that they've come to put a stop to corruption, lack of transparency and accountability, and flamboyant lifestyle. Their period was branded with this characteristic that we talk about. 2016, we have a change. The change was made for what we call a new Gambia. The new Gambia, we are still crying for the same vices that we branded the First Republic, Second Republic. This bill has come to make what we call the new Gambia another Gambia. The Gambia that will see a corrupt-free Gambia. We cannot achieve that when the leaders don't set us example. It has to begin from there. You put yourself to that level, and others have to follow. It is not a mere speaking, preaching, but by demonstration. If our leader fail to demonstrate, the trend is that the Masla syndrome will still continue. I believe this bill will better address the Masla syndrome that is affecting every good law of this country. I saw a person that addressed the people who could be contributing to give agents to be protected in terms of information that they will be given before the Commission. The bills will also consider how to protect the whistleblowers. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Bundung Kakunda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor to talk about the anti-corruption bill that is before us. As you said, sometimes we think that people should give us a favor before we are actually ready to do that service for them. And we think that it is normal, which is very serious. And if people now are not enlightened about such issues, they will believe that that is normal, and in fact it's law. Honorable Speaker, corruption, to fight it, it is not easy. There are people who want to show that they are generous. There are some people, in fact, who want to be anonymous. We call them anonymous donors. We think that they have good intentions. If you have good intention, you don't want to go and help the poor, but you want to go and help somebody who is in a very high position, and you think that is good. And generally, people accept that. That is normal. It's nothing. Honorable Speaker, I think we should start with ourselves. As National Assembly members, let us not forget, we can be lobbied, and we can be given favors to judge in favor of certain situations. I think all this we should be cognizant of. Because if we are not, we cannot go anywhere. And if everybody, both those who are giving bribes and those who are receiving it, did not see that this is a very serious crime, we will not be able to do our job properly. We will not be able to do our functions properly. As public officers, as civil servants, we have been paid by the taxpayers' money. And those taxpayers, if they need those services, we believe that they should give us extra money to do their work for them. And the whole country, everybody thinks that it is normal. And to our surprise, Gambians, in fact, want to go for jobs that you can receive a lot of favors from people, that you can receive a lot of bribes from people. Many people did not want to go for teaching because they will say, you will not get anything because there is no bribe. You are only in the classroom. But they prefer to be custom officers, police officers, or other public institutions where you deal with public, providing services, and many people will need you. Therefore, people will bribe you to favor others instead of others. Madam Speaker, I think if we are going to deal with the nitty-gritty of this bill, we are going to look at it very closely to make sure that all these things are addressed. Because if they are not addressed, definitely we will not go anywhere. And the public service will not be able to function as it should be. And we will not be able to deal with some so-called Samaritans, good Samaritans, call themselves anonymous donors, who will just like to give favors. In return, when they want to mess up with the whole system or bring things that you cannot say no to. That is why they do it. They make themselves that they want to help you, and at the end they will come in another way which you cannot do anything, even though you know that the law did not allow this. But you will say, just let it go. Honorable Speaker, I think I will give my 100% support for this bill, which is really come at a very alarming time of our new Gambia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Woolly East.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. This bill is long overdue. If you remember, we have clamored for this bill for a long time, because we've seen the importance of the bill. As you know, Honorable Speaker, the estimated loss for Africa in terms of corruption is $50 billion annually. Just 1 year, what Africa loses to corruption is $50 billion. So it's not a small matter. I raised it here. I said, how much is Gambia losing? Out of this $50 billion, how much is Gambia losing? So let's say we are losing approximately 30 billion, or 10 billion, or 5 billion. It could be anything, because we've all accepted that there is a lot of corruption. Honorable Speaker, what is in the Act is that it is estimated that we should allocate 0.5% of the budget to this sector, that is this Anti-Corruption Commission, so that they'll be able to do their job effectively. That's not small money annually. So we should take it very, very, very seriously. The bill seeks to repeal, as others have already said, the 2012 Act to give guide to the fight to corruption and to give more powers to the Commission, which is very good. Also, we should remind ourselves of the difficulty in the fight. The Honorable Member for Brikama North has already gone into that history. During the First Republic, the Mbai Commission inquiry, the difficulties they have come across, we all know. From 2012 to date, we see that the commission that is established, or the act that is established, is not effective. So we are now coming to create a commission and give them more powers so that they'll be effective. They need the support of all of us. We have a network here, African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption. We've seen only few people, and we are still advertising for more people to come in so that we'll be able to help this commission to do its work. Honorable Speaker, apart from that, I just want to ask the Minister, because I've gone through this. I'm not saying it's not there. There are many things there that will show similar to what money laundering is all about, but I've not seen that specifically stated. So I would have loved that to be part of it, but maybe when we come to the other level, committee of the whole House, will be able to inject some of those things that are not there or through our investigation. I thank you very much. We are very much in support of this move. Thank you.
Banjul South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. My intervention is going to be very, very brief because they've already said most of the things that needed to be said. But I would bring the attention of this Assembly to the fact that anti-corruption is very anti-corruption is very important. But without setting up a good foundation, it will not be successful. Because you cannot tell somebody that they are corrupt and charge them that you are going to seize their assets without knowing initially what they owned and how they acquired that. I am glad to see that there is an access to information bill in front of us, which I will applaud. But I will also emphasize on the declaration of assets, because without strengthening that unit or without implementing it fully, this anti-corruption bill, if passed into law, will not be as effective as we might want it to be. We all know corruption is always highest at the highest levels of office. And we have seen high officials in this country taking office, not only the office of the president, but if you go to any institution, you give them the heads, they will come with nothing, and by the time you know it, they will be self-made millionaires. So I think, Madam Speaker, this thing should go hand in hand with his cousins. I would call them the declaration of assets as well as the access to information, because people should be free to have access to information. Likewise, people should be able to declare their assets before they hold any form of office, Madam Speaker. In that way, this anti-corruption bill can be fully implemented. Thank you very much.
Honorable Member for Serekunda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. The object and reason as stipulated at page 50. And key to the object is fight against corruption, is crusade. I'm always frightened by crusades. And I wonder whether that should be the spirit. I prefer a mission that reflects the vital aspirations of a people. A mission that starts from realizing the facts and allow institutions to emerge and develop by speaking the language of facts. Honorable Speaker, before we talk about corruption, we must talk about injustice. To pay a human being $1,500 a month and expect that person to feed on that with honesty is dishonesty. Honorable Speaker, you cannot build a society that is just until you lay the foundation of justice. We must accept that our society is unjust. And our objective is to make it just. And it must be based on the quantity and quality of work that a human being does. And must be fit to make that person to be able to feed a family. And unless such a society exists, its fight against corruption is an act of hypocrisy. It's not real. And others will always be victims, and equality before the law will be in words rather than in deeds. So it is important, as far as I'm concerned, that if we are going to have any mechanism to make our society just and to ensure that people who are public trustees are worthy of trust, it is not this document that will be able to do it. This document needs to be recalibrated again to be able to serve that purpose. And that premise is already laid for us. We've just refused to recognize it for 22 years, 23 years, now 24 years. Honorable Speaker, Section 221 of the Constitution did establish a code of conduct for public officers and creating some element of a mission for public officers. That we establish a public service to deliver service to our population. And therefore, there should be certain safeguards in rendering such public service. And Honorable Speaker, members should go to it to see that the duties of public officers are clearly spelled out. The do and don'ts clearly spelled out. Financial provisions all spelled out. How we must avoid nepotism, bribery, and all spelled out. But essentially, we have institutions that when those public officers render service, there is an Auditor General that audits public accounts and eventually can discover what is wrong. Under such circumstances, of course, we have to have institutions. Regardless of a society that is in balance, we have to have institutions. So what is necessary, what is indicated here, to not be actionable in proceedings in the court, that is what we needed to act on by creating an instrument that will be able to accompany those fundamental principles, so that when the Auditor General discovers misappropriation, well, you need, whether it's going to be a special branch at the police force or any institution, call it at whatever name you give it, that institution will be there to accompany the structures that exist, to be able to do the investigation that is necessary to ensure that really the right thing is done. If you have to recover assets, you recover the assets. My position is that we need to build an institution around the architecture of the existing structures of the state of oversight, of the auditing institution, whether it's public enterprise, etc., so that ultimately we build up integrity. And as rightly been said, it means that we must build a new mindset. If you have the Office of Ombudsman, yes, you need to declare assets. Declare the assets. And then it moves from there. And therefore, we'll start to build on a very objective basis an architecture of integrity that will not lead to the victimization of anybody. But we will see that the existing structures will be reinforcing each other until we build a foundation, a pillar of